They tried to steal my home. They buried me in fake fines, threatened foreclosure, and thought I'd roll over like every other homeowner they bullied. What they didn't know, I'm a real estate attorney, and they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. In this video, you'll see how I exposed their corruption, fought back using the law, and turned the tables on the HOA, leaving them in ruins. If you've ever dealt with HOA abuse, unfair fines, or corrupt board members, this is a story you don't want to miss. Try to watch this video till the end. I promise you, it's worth it. Thank you for your comment. I really appreciate it. And if you want to support us, leave a like and subscribe. It takes less than a second and helps the channel a lot. Now, let's get back to the important and necessary information. The letter arrived on a Thursday. Jack Carter had just come back from court. Another routine day of outmaneuvering amateur landlords who thought they could trick tenants out of their legal rights. He tossed his keys onto the counter, shrugged off his jacket, and grabbed a stack of mail sitting on the kitchen island. Electric bill, junk mail, a pre-approved credit card offers, and then an envelope stamped with a bold, red insignia of the Wellington Estates Homeowners Association. Jack frowned. He had lived in Wellington Estates for 6 years. He knew the HOA well enough to know they were relentlessly bureaucratic, full of arbitrary rules designed to squeeze money out of homeowners. But he had never had a problem with them before. He paid his dues on time. He followed the regulations, at least the ones that made sense. He tore open the envelope and unfolded the letter. Notice of delinquency and intent to foreclose. The words hit him like a slap to the face. His eyes narrowed as he read further. Mr. Carter, our records indicate that you failed to pay outstanding HOA fees in the amount of $8,943.27. If full payment is not received within 14 days, the HOA will proceed with legal action, including but not limited to a lien on your property and foreclosure proceedings. Jack scoffed. $8,900? That was impossible. He pulled up his banking app, scrolling through the history of HOA payments. There was every transaction, every auto draft, paid in full. This wasn't just a clerical error. This was intentional. Jack's mind immediately started assembling the puzzle pieces. Why now? Why would the HOA suddenly fabricate a massive debt against him? Was this just incompetence? Or was there something more sinister at play? Then he saw the signature at the bottom of the letter. Richard Langley, HOA president. Jack let out a slow breath. Of course. Richard Langley was a power-hungry egomaniac. He had taken over the HOA board 2 years ago and turned it into his personal fiefdom, hiking fees, issuing arbitrary fines, and cracking down on even the most minor infractions. Jack had butted heads with him before, particularly when Langley tried to enforce a rule about approved landscaping designs that would force Jack to rip out his backyard garden. Jack had used his legal expertise to shut that down immediately, and now, it seemed, Langley was looking for payback. Jack folded the letter carefully and set it aside. If Langley thought he could push him around, he was in for a rude awakening. The next morning, Jack drove to the HOA office, a sleek, modern building that looked far too expensive for what was supposed to be a non-profit organization. Inside, a bored-looking receptionist barely glanced up. "I need to speak with Richard Langley," Jack said. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I have a foreclosure notice that says I should make this a priority." He tossed the letter onto the counter. The receptionist's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly masked her reaction. "I'll see if he's available." A few minutes later, Jack was led into a conference room. Langley was already seated at the head of the table, a smug smile on his face. "Jack Carter," Langley said smoothly. "I was wondering when you'd come in." Jack sat down across from him, leveling him with a stare. "Cut the theatrics, Richard. You know damn well I don't owe a cent to the HOA. Langley leaned back, folding his hands. "Our records say otherwise." "Your records are wrong. And if this is some kind of stunt to squeeze money out of me, I guarantee you've picked the wrong person to mess with." Langley's smile widened, but there was an edge to it now. Jack, this isn't personal. If you disagree with the fees, you're welcome to file an appeal." Jack pulled out his phone and scrolled to his transaction history. "Here, every HOA payment, documented and paid." So, tell me, where's the supposed $8,943 charge coming from? Langley glanced at the screen, but he didn't look the least bit concerned. HOA fees aren't just about monthly dues, Jack. There are violations, special assessments, administrative costs. Jack cut him off. I've never received a single fine, and I sure as hell didn't agree to any special assessments. Langley shrugged. Then it must be an oversight. Jack leaned forward, his voice calm but deadly. Here's what's going to happen, Richard. You're going to correct your records, remove this fraudulent debt, and issue a formal retraction of the foreclosure notice. If you don't, I'll file a lawsuit so fast your head will spin. Langley chuckled. Jack, let's not be dramatic. You're a lawyer, but I'm running the HOA. I have every legal right to enforce these fees. If you don't pay up, your house will be auctioned off. Jack stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. That's cute, he said. You think you're in control. Langley's smirk faltered. Jack stood, adjusting his cufflinks. Go ahead. Try to sell my house. See what happens. Langley's eyes narrowed. I already have a buyer lined up. Jack's smile didn't waver. Then you just made the biggest mistake of your life. He turned and walked out. By the time he reached his car, his mind was already racing. This wasn't just about him. If the HOA was willing to pull a stunt like this on a real estate attorney, how many other homeowners had they already scammed? One thing was certain. Richard Langley had just declared war, and Jack was more than ready to bury him in legal hell. Jack Carter didn't waste time. By the time he got back to his home office, he had already formed a plan. This wasn't just an administrative error. It was a calculated move. And if the HOA had pulled this on him, they'd definitely done to others. Jack wasn't just going to fight back. He was going to burn their whole operation to the ground. Jack sat at his desk, pulling up Wellington Estates' HOA financial disclosures. Most HOAs were nonprofit organizations, required by law to provide financial transparency. The problem? Many corrupt HOA boards hid their real transactions behind vague expense reports and manipulated assessments. He flipped through the latest annual report, scanning line by line. Collected HOA dues, $1,375,000. Administrative costs, $620,000. Legal fees, $210,000. Community maintenance, $55,000. Jack's eyes narrowed. $55,000 for community maintenance. On a neighborhood with over 300 homes? That was absurd. The HOA was raking in over $1 million a year. Yet only a tiny fraction was going toward actual neighborhood upkeep. The rest? Administrative costs. Jack laughed dryly. He'd seen the scam before. HOA board members inflating salaries, overpaying contractors, often friends or shell companies, and siphoning money out of the budget. And that $210,000 in legal fees? That was proof they had been aggressively pursuing homeowners for fabricated debts. His suspicions were confirmed when he cross-referenced past foreclosure notices in the county records. In the last 2 years, the Wellington Estates HOA had filed liens on 11 properties, 7 of which had resulted in 4 sales. They'd stolen 7 homes. Jack's grip tightened around his pen. This wasn't just fraud. This was organized racketeering. Jack reached out to a contact at the county recorder's office. Hey, Lisa, it's Jack Carter. Jack, haven't heard from you in a while. What's up? I need records on all recent property sales in Wellington Estates. Specifically, anything sold due to HOA liens. Lisa hesitated. That HOA again? Yeah, they've been filing a lot of foreclosure actions lately. Jack's gut clenched. You've noticed? Of course. It's weird, Jack. Most HOAs don't push people into foreclosure this aggressively. I figured something shady was going on, but nobody's looked into it. Jack exhaled sharply. Well, I'm looking now. Lisa promised to send over the records within the hour. Jack leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The Wellington Estates HOA wasn't just trying to bully homeowners into paying fees. They were deliberately engineering foreclosures, acquiring homes far below market value, and then flipping them for massive profits. And Richard Langley was at the center of it all. The documents arrived in Jack's inbox. He scanned the foreclosure notices, and one name kept popping up: Summit Property Group. They had purchased 5 of the 7 foreclosed homes. Jack's pulse quickened. A quick corporate records search revealed the name behind Summit Property Group: Richard Langley. Jack smiled coldly. Got you. Langley wasn't just foreclosing on people. He was stealing their homes, buying them through a shell company, and reselling them for massive profits. And now, he was trying to do the same thing to Jack. That was his first and final mistake: the HOA's fake fines. Jack needed to prove that his delinquent fees were fabricated. Logging into the HOA's portal, he requested a full itemized breakdown of his supposed balance. If they refused to provide one, that alone was a violation of state HOA regulations. Less than an hour later, an email arrived. Jack opened the attached PDF and skimmed through the charges. His eyes darkened. HOA dues paid, $0 balance. Community upkeep special assessment, $4,250. Architectural violation fee, $2,500. Legal processing fee, $1,200. Late payment penalty, $993.27. Jack laughed in disbelief. Every single charge was manufactured. The special assessment had never been voted on by homeowners. The architectural violation fee was nonsense. He had never received a single notice of violation. The legal processing fee was a blatant cash grab. And the late payment penalty? There had been no late payment. Langley had made up thousands of dollars in bogus charges just to put Jack into default and justify foreclosure. Jack set his laptop down, exhaling through his nose. Richard Langley had been running this scam for years. But now, he had just picked the wrong target. A late-night call. Jack dialed a number he hadn't called in a while. Carter. A voice grumbled. Hey, Mitch, I need a favor. Mitch Reynolds was a former state attorney general, now working as a private investigator. He and Jack had worked together on several real estate fraud cases. What's the job? Mitch asked. Jack leaned back, staring at the ceiling. HOA corruption, fraudulent foreclosures, money laundering. I need proof of where the money is going. Mitch let out a low whistle. Shit, Jack. You just stumbled into this, or did someone piss you off? Oh, they pissed me off, Jack said with a smirk. Mitch chuckled. All right, I'll start digging. Shouldn't take long. Crooks like this always leave a money trail. Jack nodded. And when we find it, I'm going to bury these assholes. Preparing for war. Jack spent the next several hours preparing his next moves. File a formal dispute with the HOA, forcing them to respond in writing. Request financial records under state HOA laws. They were required to provide full transparency. Gather testimonies from other homeowners who had faced similar fraudulent charges. Expose the connection between Langley and Summit Property Group. Jack had played this game before. He knew every loophole, every law, every countermeasure. By the time he was done, the HOA wouldn't just be facing a lawsuit. They'd be facing criminal charges. Jack leaned back in his chair, cracking his knuckles. Langley thought he had power, thought he could scare Jack into paying up. Big mistake. Tomorrow, Jack would file his first legal strike. And Richard Langley? He was about to learn exactly why you never pick a fight with a real estate attorney. Jack Carter was a patient man when he needed to be, but this wasn't one of those times. By 9 a.m. the next morning, he was already drafting his first legal strike. His plan was simple: drown the HOA in paperwork, force them to admit their fraud, and then go for the kill. Langley thought he was dealing with just another homeowner, someone who would panic, scramble for money, and cave under the pressure. He had no idea what was coming. Jack opened a new legal document on his computer. He had two main objectives: file a formal dispute with the HOA to challenge their fraudulent charges, request full financial transparency, forcing them to expose their corruption. Most homeowners didn't know this, but HOAs were required by law to provide an itemized breakdown of their financials. They couldn't just invent fees out of thin air. They had to justify every dollar. Jack typed out the formal request. Formal dispute of fraudulent HOA fees and request for financial records. To the Wellington Estates HOA, Pursuant to state law, statute reference, I am formally disputing the alleged balance of $8,943.27 claimed against my property. Your itemized list of charges contains unapproved special assessments, fabricated violations, and unlawful legal fees, all of which are in direct violation of the HOA's own bylaws and state homeowner protection laws. Furthermore, I am requesting access to the HOA's financial records for the past 5 years, as required under statute reference. Please provide the following: complete itemized records of all HOA expenses, including board member salaries and bonuses, a full list of homeowners who have been subject to liens or foreclosure actions in the past 5 years, any and all contract with third-party vendors related to special assessments and property maintenance. Failure to provide this information within 7 business days will result in immediate legal action, including but not limited to a formal lawsuit against the Wellington Estates HOA and its board members for fraud, financial mismanagement, and breach of fiduciary duty. Govern yourselves accordingly. Jack Carter, ESQ. Jack leaned back and smiled. This wasn't just a request. It was a legal grenade designed to do one thing: force the HOA onto defensive. Langley wouldn't be able to ignore it. If he refused to provide the records, that alone was a violation, and Jack could drag them straight into court. He printed the document, sealed it in an envelope, and made his way to the HOA office. Jack didn't bother making an appointment. He walked into the HOA office, the same board receptionist blinking up at him. Mr. Carter, do you? I'm here for Langley. Jack slapped the certified letter onto the counter. Tell him he has 7 days. The receptionist hesitated. I'm not sure he's available right now. Jack smiled coldly. He'll make time. Before she could protest, the door to the back office swung open. Richard Langley stepped out, wearing that same smug expression. Jack, back so soon. Jack crossed his arms. 7 days, Langley. That's how long you have to hand over the financials. I'd suggest you start gathering documents. Langley smirked. I don't take orders from homeowners. Jack's smile didn't waver. No, but you do take orders from the law. And right now, you're looking at a very expensive lawsuit if you don't comply. Langley's jaw tightened. You think you can intimidate me? Jack leaned in slightly. Oh, I'm not intimidating you. I'm just letting you know what's about to happen. He turned on his heel and walked out. Jack didn't wait for a response. He knew Langley would try to stall, so he moved ahead with his second attack. By noon, he was drafting a lawsuit against the HOA, listing the following charges: fraudulent financial practices, wrongful foreclosure attempts, violation of state transparency laws, racketeering and financial mismanagement. He also prepared a motion for a temporary injunction, a legal maneuver that would freeze all HOA foreclosure actions until the case was resolved. If the court approved it, Langley wouldn't be able to sell a single house. Jack knew he wasn't the only victim. He started calling other homeowners who had been hit with sudden, unexplained fees. Within hours, he had a list of 6 more people who had nearly lost their homes under suspicious circumstances. That evening, Jack held a meeting at his house. Around his kitchen table sat a group of angry homeowners, all sharing eerily similar stories. Karen Lively, a retired teacher, had received a $12,000 emergency assessment for road repairs that never happened. The Martinez family had fought a bogus architectural violation after the HOA claimed their mailbox was the wrong shade of brown. Greg Hollis, a veteran, had nearly lost his home when the HOA demanded $6,500 in late fees that he had already paid. Jack listened, taking notes. Then he said, "How many of you still have your HOA documents and payment records?" Every single person raised a folder of paperwork. Jack smiled. Good, because we're about to make this very, very expensive for them. The next morning, Jack's legal filing hit the HOA like a bomb. By noon, his phone rang. Langley. Jack answered casually. Richard, how's your morning? Langley's voice was tight, with barely controlled rage. You think you can threaten me with this bullshit lawsuit? Jack chuckled. Richard, it's not a threat. It's a promise. You have no case. Jack leaned back. Oh, I have 7. That's how many homeowners have already joined the lawsuit, and I bet by the end of the week I'll have dozens more. Silence. Then Langley growled, "You don't know who you're messing with." Jack smirked. "No, Richard, you don't." He hung up. Jack wasn't done yet. He contacted a local investigative reporter, tipping them off about HOA fraud and illegal foreclosures. Within 2 days, the story was running on the evening news. Homeowners accuse HOA of fraudulent foreclosures. Legal battle brewing over HOA corruption. Local attorney takes on HOA, and he's winning. Langley's smug expression was gone. Jack knew what was coming next. Langley would fight dirty. He'd try fake complaints, intimidation tactics, maybe even legal threats. But Jack was always 2 steps ahead, and he was just getting started. Jack Carter had played this game before, and he never lost. Langley and the HOA were scrambling, but Jack knew they wouldn't go down quietly. Corrupt organizations always try to fight back, usually with intimidation, bogus counterclaims, or straight-up legal threats. That was fine. Jack welcomed the fight, because the harder they pushed, the deeper they fell into his trap. It didn't take long for the first retaliation attempt. The morning after the lawsuit went public, Jack found a bright red violation notice taped to his front door. Notice of fines, Wellington Estates HOA. Infractions: unauthorized lawn ornament, $500. Improperly maintained driveway, $1,250. Failure to submit landscaping plan, $2,000. Total due, $3,750. Jack laughed out loud. This was amateur hour. His lawn was perfectly maintained. His driveway had just been resealed last year. And as for a landscaping plan, that wasn't even a real rule in the HOA's bylaws. This wasn't about violations. This was about retaliation, and it was illegal. Jack walked inside, grabbed his phone, and hit record. This is Jack Carter. Today is date, and I'm documenting the HOA's latest attempt at fraudulent fines. This comes less than 24 hours after I filed a lawsuit against them. Clear retaliation, clear abuse of power. This is going straight into my case. Then he picked up the violation notice, placed it neatly in a folder labeled Exhibits Record, and sent a copy of the recording to his attorney. Langley had just handed him more evidence on a silver platter. Mitch Reynolds, Jack's private investigator, had been digging hard. By noon, Jack's phone buzzed. "Mitch, check your email. You're going to love this." Jack opened his laptop, clicked the attachment, and grinned. The HOA's legal fund had paid over $200,000 to a consulting firm, which was actually owned by Langley's brother-in-law. The so-called road repair assessment had been billed to a fake contractor who had never done any actual work. Langley's shell company, Summit Property Group, had acquired 5 foreclosed homes for pennies on the dollar, then flipped them for massive profits. It was fraud, plain and simple. And now, Jack had the proof. He picked up his phone and called a contact at the state attorney general's office. "Hey, Denise," he said, his voice casual. "How interested would you be in a case involving organized real estate fraud, embezzlement, and racketeering?" Denise was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Jack, you better bring me everything you have." Jack smiled. "Oh, don't worry. I will." By the next day, the pressure was getting to Langley. Jack's lawsuit was moving forward. The news was running daily segments on the corruption scandal. And now, state investigators were starting to sniff around. Langley did the only thing a corner rat knew how to do. He tried to scare Jack off. At 2:30 a.m., Jack's security cameras caught 2 masked men sneaking onto his property. They didn't do much, just slashed his car tires, spray-painted, dropped the case on his garage, and ran off. Jack shook his head as he reviewed the footage. Pathetic. By 7 a.m., Jack had sent the video to the police, filed a report, and handed it over to his news contacts. By noon, the story was running under the headline, "HOA corruption case turns ugly. Attorney's home vandalized in apparent intimidation attempt." Langley had just made another mistake. Jack wasn't just going to win this case. He was going to end Langley's entire career. Jack knew it was only a matter of time before Langley caved. The final push came when the state attorney general's office officially launched an investigation into the HOA. Now, Langley wasn't just facing a lawsuit. He was facing criminal charges. A week later, Jack got a call. Langley. His voice was shaky. Carter, we need to talk. Jack leaned back in his chair, smirking. Oh, about what? A long pause. Then Langley exhaled sharply. We're willing to settle. Jack grinned. Too late, Richard. I don't want a settlement. I want a conviction. Langley cursed under his breath. You think you've won? Jack laughed. Oh, I know I have. He hung up. And by the end of the week, the Wellington Estates HOA was officially dissolved. Langley was arrested for fraud. The stolen homes were returned to their rightful owners. And Jack Carter? He spent the next weekend sitting on his porch, sipping a drink, watching the sunset, on the home that Langley had tried to steal from him. Game over. Langley was finished, but he didn't go down quietly. As the news of his arrest spread, the remaining HOA board members scrambled to cover their tracks. Some resigned, others tried to cut secret deals, but it was too late. State investigators were already on them. Within a month, 2 board members were indicted for financial fraud. The HOA's assets were frozen pending a full audit. Over a dozen homeowners who had been wrongfully fined or foreclosed received restitution. Jack, he watched it all unfold, satisfied but not surprised. Then came the unexpected offer. A law firm specializing in HOA cases wanted him to lead a new legal division. They offered a fat paycheck and full autonomy. Jack thought about it. Then he looked at his house, the one they tried to steal, the symbol of his fight. He had proven his point. But maybe it was time to turn this battle into a career. With a smirk, Jack picked up the phone. Let's talk. 6 months later, Jack Carter stood on the balcony of his newly remodeled home, overlooking the neighborhood. The HOA was gone, its corruption exposed. The once feared board members, bankrupt, indicted, or vanished. Langley, sitting in a courtroom, fighting a losing battle against fraud charges that would likely land him in prison. Jack had won, but he wanted to make sure they never forgot it. The ultimate payback. With his new legal expertise, Jack had done more than just take down the HOA. He had bought the HOA's former office building, the very place where Langley and his cronies had issued bogus fines, foreclosure threats, and power plays. Then he converted it into a community center. On opening day, Jack put up a brand new sign in front of the building. Carter Legal Aid, fighting HOA abuse one home at a time. Formerly intimidated homeowners cheered as they walked inside, knowing that the place where they were once exploited was now a beacon of justice. As for Langley, the last time Jack saw him, it was in court. Langley was in a cheap suit, sweating as a judge denied his plea deal. Jack simply smiled, leaned over, and whispered, "Next time, Richard, pick on someone who doesn't know the law." Langley's face went pale. Jack turned and walked out, the sound of the judge's gavel echoing behind him.